Welcome to Body Innovations. This is our osteoporosis fall prevention program. So in speaking about fall prevention, this is not the season of fall prevention in terms of fall, but actually falling prevention. So today we're here with Barb, and Barb is here to demonstrate a few different things of exercises that we're going to use. So Barb, I'm first going to have you stand to face the mirror. So I want you to turn sideways, and we're going to talk a little bit just about posturing. And if you have been diagnosed with osteoporosis, it's very, very important that you become body aware. So you need to know where your body is in space at all times. So it's very, very common for a lot of people, including both men and women, to have their actual chest drop forward. So I'm going to have Barb demonstrate that, where she actually slumps forward a little bit. So depending on, your own posture, somebody might already tell you that you could have a kyphosis through here, or that you're dropping your chest forward. So I want you to just imagine that you have a string on your chest and that it's leading up toward the sky. And then I want you to just straighten up nice and tall there, so that this allows your posture to come better into a balance. So when I'm looking at posturing for Barb or for any person, I almost want to imagine that there's a plumb line here. And the plumb line, if I had it falling from the ceiling, would fall right through her, come down through her earlobe here, the center of her arm, and then down through her hip, her knee, and right through to her ankle. So what would happen if she's falling forward is that upper body would be off the plumb line. So we're always looking to bring her body back into a balance and create a natural awareness for her to move. So now I'm going to have you just face the actual audience here. And what I'm going to have you do is, first of all, you just want to move your feet. Just move your feet, get comfortable, and then let them land. Okay? Now, from that position, what we want to know, you're like, where are my feet? One of the questions that I always ask people is, can you just lift one foot? So I just want you to lift your foot, and then bring it back down, and then lift your other foot. So we're just testing to see, let's try it again, what your balance is like. So you want to know, are you able to do it? Good. And for Barb, she's got good balance. And I want you to, can you bring your leg up so that the knee is in line with the hip joint? That's called I call it a knee float. Her hip or her knee is in alignment, and then bring it down. And can she achieve that same movement on the other side and keep her balance? Good. Notice all her toes are on the ground. She's not supinating or pronating. Good job. And bring it down. The other thing to look at here, let's try it again, one more time. Yeah, is that we want to watch that this hip that she's lifting on, can we just drop it a little bit? Like, drop it down. So that she stays nice and level through her pelvis. And then lower the leg down. Let's try it on the other side. So when you don't have a mirror to look at, you've got to kind of know, if you're lifting your leg and hiking that hip up, that's actually creating a side bend there. And that is a side bend flexion. So we really want to keep you stable. Very good work. And then lower it down. So now, once I know that, if Barb had demonstrated a lot of problems with this move and she was very unbalanced, then I would be putting, double sticks into Barb's hand, and we would work with the floor to achieve better balance before I actually come up to this little yoga block. So this is just a yoga block, very inexpensive piece of equipment, but really great piece of equipment. So I actually prefer, when you're looking for a yoga block, this is a cork one. You can find foam ones. I prefer a really hard block. Cork is great. It's nice and firm, so the firmer I can get that block. If it's softer, it's going to be a little squishy, and it could cause a little bit even more imbalance for you. So try to look for a really firm block. And then what I'm going to have Barb do is, I'll give you both poles. So we're going to have Barb demonstrate for us, and I'll slowly start moving her poles around. She's going to come behind this block, and we're going to put one foot, your choice, on the block. So she puts her foot on there, and then you're going to stand on the block and let the other leg float. So she's standing on her right leg. This leg is completely just hanging down. We look to see that her hips are level. Could you demonstrate it when this hip would come up? Okay, so not a good situation. And bring it down. But Barb doesn't actually have any osteo, so we're okay with that. So her hips stay nice and level, and she's balancing. I look to see how her foot is handling on the block, the actual balance work there. But we want her knee to be soft. And now I'm going to just take your sticks a little bit wider. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to ask Barb to do what I call a leg swing with the left leg. She's going to move from this socket and swing her leg in a natural range of motion back and forth. Okay. So now you can see from this front view that she's moving from the hip socket and that we want to keep her pelvis actually very still. She's not, say, tipping her pelvis back and forth and back and forth as her leg is moving. She's just moving the leg within the hip socket. So now, Barb, can we actually take away one stick? So she's got one stick to use as balance, counterbalance. Could put it in either hand, I'm up for that, and then try the leg swing again. How does that feel? Is it a little more challenging or making no difference? Okay. So this would be a progression with this exercise. And now I'm going to ask Barb, can she bring her stick up so that the stick is up in front of her? So now it requires Barb to have more balance and go back to your leg swing. So she's going, so you can see it becomes very challenging by bringing that stick up. So if you're, you have to kind of be ready for which stages. I'm showing you all the progressions of where to go with this. So this is a fall prevention exercise. We're actually strengthening this right hip. It's working with the inner thigh. She's got a lot of work happening through here. Can you feel the hip working? And
not so much as the shin. My right
Oh,
shin
you feel the shin working too. Everything's working there. Now let's step off. And we're going to actually come back onto the other leg. So we're going to give this leg a break.
Thank you.
Yep. So the nice thing about the block is that you can work up your strength. You don't have to sit there and, have to torture yourself for too long. You can feel that leg working. So now with this particular leg, I'm going to give you back your two sticks. Okay, make them wide. And we're going to bring the leg forward so your toes just touching the ground and circle it back. And then circle it forward. So with this move, we're moving from the hip socket and we're challenging the balance issues that go on. And she's trying to not rotate through her pelvis. We're moving just from that hip socket. And let's take one away. Good. Right knee or left knee is soft. And then bring the stick back up. Trying it there. Becomes much harder. So you have to be ready, and if your balance isn't good, and the idea is to use the stick. You don't want to be falling off your block. We would not achieve our goal here, creating strength.
Well, one of the other things is you learn.
Yes, and you did. You learn, definitely. That was excellent work. So now what I'm going to do is our next exercise, we're going to have Barb just put her foot on the block, and she's standing behind it, and we're just going to have you step forward. So 1 foot on. Good. She could again have two sticks or one. We'll start with one. Now what she's going to do here, she's starting with her left leg is straight. And then what she's going to do is bring her whole body weight over the block and come to that float or that hang and then step back. And then come forward, find that correct balance and step back. Notice her shoulders are relaxed. She's really watching. So for you, Barb, you have to really watch your right hip. That right hip just loves to hike up. And when she comes onto that block, good. And one more. Now pause there. We're going to actually step you forward with that right leg. So now you're stepping down. So notice when you're stepping down, you got to step back. Okay. And then step all the way through. So notice when she's stepping through, when she comes into the forward position, her heel lifts off the block. If you're using a mirror at home, you want to notice that you should not really be seeing the back heel. So her back heel, when she is stepping off of it, it should not be turning. You want to have her heel hidden, as well as with this back leg as well. So her back leg, I'll just have you demonstrate. So when you step back, can you externally rotate your back leg a little bit? Just turn this out. This is, you have to watch for this. So if you're doing it in front of a mirror, I would suggest that at home. You really want to watch that you don't have this position. Now we're going to square you off again. So you've got to think from your shoulders to your hips, everything's a nice rectangle facing if I had strings to the mirror, they would all be the same length. Do not let this hip turn outward and externally rotate, because that is a rotation, and it's going to throw you off balance. It could indicate that you have some tightness going on in your glute here. Okay, so how did that feel for you?
Fine.
Not bad? Okay. All right, so let's just pause here for a moment and come off your block. Perfect. Thank you. All right.
Go ahead.
With this next exercise, we're going to have Barb standing in a nice tall position. Now, we have a band, so you could purchase a band from many different stores. You want a very secure, firm band. You don't really want some band that's very weak, because it would allow you too much give, and the last thing we want is you to feel unsupported while you're doing the exercise. So this is a very, very strong, very, very firm band. So when you are purchasing it, make sure you test it out and have it. Now, one of the things is we've taken her band and I've wrapped it around, you could wrap it around a banister. So you're gonna wrap it around some kind of firm spot. And you wanna make sure that when I'm putting it just at the height of her hand position, and you've got to make sure that it's a very common problem that when Barb is standing here, that she would have the tendency, or anyone, to lean backwards. Can you show that, Barb? Just lean. Don't let the band pull you. I want you to pretend like you don't really have a hold of the band. The band is there to assist you and give you support and stability. So again, I'm going to have you just move your legs and place your feet just so they feel hip width apart. Okay. Now from that position, I'm going to have Barb sit down as if she was going to sit in a chair. And you don't want her hip any lower than her knee. That's good. And she has a good neutral spine here. And then come back up. And then she's going to go back down. So she's going to sit back down, keeping her spine in a nice neutral position, and her chest is lifted. So I like to imagine that there's a string on the top of your head, so that as you go down into that position, that you're not falling forward. So it's very common that as a person would go down, they would actually bend through their thoracic spine here, or lean forward here, and then come back up. So the squat, the basic function of this movement for you with osteoporosis is to learn to be able to dissociate your back from your legs. You have to be able to move from the hip and not from your back positions to create that hinge to move down into the squat. You've got to keep this spine in its neutral curves. And I want to just mention, how you feeling? You're still good?
Yep.
As she do a couple more, that we want to watch her position of her knees. So you might be able to see that I'm looking to make sure that these knees do not fall in like that. Good. I want them in that neutral position, and then come back up. As she goes down, her heels stay on the ground, and she does not pronate and collapse into her position when she goes down. You want to show that a little bit. Your knees come in, your feet fall in. Yeah, not good.
More challenging.
Yeah, and then come back up. So again, we'll do a perfect one. You're going down, her knee alignment, so that her kneecap is centered over first and second toe. She has a good arch support. Her back is neutral, and then come back up. Good. How does it feel?
Right.
Now, to just advance this slightly, I'm going to have you go back down into the move. Now, as you come out of it, you're going to land on one foot. So you just come up and lift one foot. Good. Come back down. Go into your squat. And then come up, lift the other foot. Perfect. We're going to try that a couple times. And I want you to notice as Barb does this movement, when she lifts this leg, this is her problem hip. She tends to like to hike the hip. We all have our issues that we fight with in terms of mechanics. Hers will be the right hip. So as she lifts this leg, she's got to really focus that she doesn't let that hip come up. It's got to stay down in position. And she's much better on this other leg. So as we work with her programming, we're going to be working to get her to be really body aware and focus on not letting that hip come up. But that's excellent work, Barb. Now we're going to have Barb go into a lunge position. So it's a standing static lunge position. Again, we're watching that her hips are level, her shoulders are level. She's in good form there. And then what she's going to do here is just lower herself down. Imagine she's got that nice tall string, and then come back up. We want to make sure, if when you're doing a lunge as usual, that this front knee is not going, I don't want it way over past your foot here. So you shouldn't be having any quadricep or knee stress. If there's knee stress, we have to look into why that's happening. It could be that your quadricep here, this thigh muscle, is tight. And it could also be that you're stressing that knee by allowing the knee to travel way over the foot. How does that feel?
Fine.
Now, to advance this exercise, let's just switch to your other leg, give it a little bit of a break. So you have to watch, because this is Barb's other hip, we have to really watch that she keeps it square and that she doesn't rotate it out, okay? And she's going to go back down into that lunge position. And to advance the exercise, when you're up here in this tall position, I'm just going to bring the band back. So I actually create a little bit of a row happening through here. So a nice tall position, and then release your arm long and go down. And then coming up, get a little bit of a row, and then back out and down. So notice that she's creating that movement. She's not moving her torso back and forth. She's very stable. She's very strong. How do your legs feel? You should feel your legs working. You can feel the row. How do they feel? Good?
Good.
Okay, perfect. And then let that come to rest. So one last thing that we want to look at, when we're looking, let's drop that. I'm just going to let that go. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So now I'm going to give you this stick, and I want you to place the stick on your back. So we place the stick on the back, and we want to notice that when it's on the back, can this arm come down and place this hand right in the small of your back? There you go. So when you have, say, an ideal posture, the stick will hit through your bottom here and through your thoracic spine and her head. But there's a natural curve that happens through her neck and through her lumbar spine. Now, if you have, say, severe osteoporosis, or suppose you have a kyphosis through here, like a little bit of a falling forward and your chest is down, to begin with, when I'm teaching you, I'm using this, I'm going to teach Barb a proper hinge position. So how to hinge her body over without creating flexion in her trunk. So let's move your legs to be a little bit wider, okay? And all I want you to do, Barb, is bend your knees and hinge forward. So notice she's hinging at the hip, her back is nice and straight, and then straighten back up. So Barb comes back up, and then she bends her knees and she hinges over. So she's not flexing her spinal column at all, and then come back up. The movement is created through the hip sockets and through her knees to create the hinge. So she gets in and out of a chair. This is a very important part of moving just in and out of chairs, that you do not flex your spine. How do they feel?
Something works, right?
I know, something works right. So it's a hard concept for a lot of people when they actually start to learn to do the movement. They like to bend through their back like this, even though they think that they're moving at the hip. So it takes a long time. This is just a dowel. You can get one of these at a hardware store, but it can be learned to be your best friend when you're learning to become body aware. Good job.